Well, it's just a few days until the Easter long weekend, and holidaymakers will be traveling to their preferred destination. South Africa has historically faced alarming road safety challenges during this period. The city of Cape Town also launched their Operation Exodus, offering free vehicle checks in an effort to keep roads safer and to ensure roadworthy vehicles. Accidents and deaths are common over this time of the year. How can we change bad driver behavior to decrease the death toll on our roads? We now speak to Derek Kirkby, who is a training director for Masterdrive, knows about what he knows about the consequences of bad driver habits, and also to tell us more about how we can ensure that we become better drivers behind the wheel. Derek, good morning. Thank you so much for making time for us. First of all, let's start here. The definition of bad driving, because sometimes what you do find people who've been driving for years is that they would be on their cell phones, perhaps maybe a touch of makeup here and there, and sometimes also a meal in their hand.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me. We found that cell phones is the leading cause of collisions. In some instances, research shows that it's potentially worse than drinking and driving. And the reason for this is because, as you mentioned, people are continuously on their cell phones. Generally, as a public, etc., we can almost predict when people are drinking, leading up to Easter, Friday nights, etc. But during the day, we've got everyone on their cell phones, either using it as navigation. I know in lockdown, there was a lot of people doing Zoom calls while driving, which is frightening. And through the technology in the vehicle, yes, you can connect your cell phone to the vehicle's Bluetooth kit, but people get very creative, and they know they can now start doing Zoom calls while driving via the interactive screens, etc. in the car, which is obviously not responsible at all. So it is a massive, massive problem, and like I said, it's the leading cause of road fatalities and collisions on our South African roads is cell phones and distractors.
Yeah. Do we know, Derek, of any research that has been done to look into the psychological behavior of a driver? Because if you think about it, once you have received your license, you're a new driver, you're almost extra cautious, around your behavior on the road. So as you become more comfortable being behind the wheel and you become more experienced as well and more confident in your driving, it seems that is the moment that some drivers then are willing to take the risks, even though they know that particular risk could also lead to their very own death.
Absolutely. So the problem is, and like you mentioned, when we've just received our driver's license, we're nervous, we're cautious, etc. But then it obviously wears off over time. And the problem with this is that we drive, we start getting bad habits, we start using phones with no consequence. Every day our following distance decreases, but no consequence. So we continuously do it thinking this is there's no consequence to this is the right thing to do, there's no danger in it. The problem is when it happens, obviously with it's fatal, it might be injuries, etc. Then we only learn of, hang on a minute, that following distance, using my cell phone, speeding, was actually a bad idea. But unfortunately, it takes a collision for us to understand that it's a bad thing. So, in, let's say, other countries, they continuously running campaigns with safe driving, billboards. They continuously keeping in the foreground the dangers of certain things on the roads, just to keep people on their toes the whole time, so they don't fall into that realm of complacency and that, it's never going to happen to me.
Yeah. Yeah. What again to that particular question, because we'll have a chat about the demerit point system and whether or not that could be a deterrent. But death on its own should be a deterrent. The possibility of also ending up with a disability because of a stupid decision that you have taken as a driver, surely that must be a deterrent.
It should be. 100% it should be. However, it's just maybe, I don't know, human nature or something, not for it to be a deterrent, and we kind of push the risks all the time. I am a voluntary medic, and I've been to collisions where someone is injured and they say, but this is about the 4th collision I've had in the past year. And I'm thinking, how about maybe learning from it? But unfortunately, we have a large majority of drivers out there that, they believe that they're indestructible or immortal. I'm not sure, but it's definitely not a deterrent. I mean, when we do our courses and seminars, we're continuously talking about seatbelt use and the use of seatbelt with passengers, etc. And in my seminars, I show people video footage and research, but again, they walk out there, and what's the first thing they do? Probably get in the car and drive off without a seatbelt. So it's so difficult, and it's one of the things that is our challenge, is trying to change driver behavior. That is the key. If I can change driver behavior, then we'll obviously reduce fatalities and injuries on the road.
What do you think then is the responsibility of the passenger, perhaps maybe the responsibility of a friend, of a peer, of a driver, when they do see that, actually, my friend, you're going about this the wrong way?
Look, I think it goes maybe further than that. And, with regard with parents, with their kids getting licenses, they find a driving school, the kids go to the driving school, get their license. But we need to look at parents. What are they doing leading up to their children getting a license? How are they driving? Are they setting a good example? Do they wear seatbelts? Do they continuously educate their children on the dangers of using cell phones, etc.? So when their kids get a license, that automatically is now transferred over to them. So that's kind of, I think, the starting point where we can start making safer drivers from their early age. Kids are very sort of good at absorbing information when they're younger. So if the parents are doing the right things, relatives, etc., are doing the right things when it comes to driving, that will potentially make a better driver once they get their license.
Yeah. So at Masterdrive, what do you guys then teach drivers in terms of trying to be safe on the road? Also taking into consideration that sometimes, while it's not me as the driver who is in the wrong, it could be another driver who's in the wrong, and is defensive driving the answer?
Absolutely. So, our core business is defensive driving, and with regard to that, our defensive driving is to drive to prevent a collision, and despite the incorrect actions of other road users. So even whilst someone might disobey the rules of the road in front of you, etc., you're driving in such a manner where you're almost you're almost helping that person not have a collision. So that's defensive driving. And like I mentioned before, we're all about driver behavioral change. So if I can change your driver behavior, attitude basically, be it, you obviously will be more aware on the road. That way, you keeping yourself safe. And again, generally, if everyone is driving safely and defensively, we're hoping that sort of gets contagious, and everyone else starts looking at going, well, let's start relaxing when we drive, pay attention, etc. Because, it amazes me, we drive on the roads, we see a collision, and it's a bad collision. We all slow down to look, which is not the safest thing anyway, but be it as it may, we still look. And then for literally maybe an hour after that, we drive cautious, but it wears off very quickly. And now we're back to speeding, changing lanes over solid lines, etc. So defensive driving needs to be a continuous habit, that it's installed, that you're continuously doing it, not just for certain sections on the road or during the week. It has to be part of your driving experience in life.
Do you think that should be legislated as well, considering that I want to now also ask about, from a legislative point of view, how do you ensure that drivers actually do behave, and we also decrease the number of deaths on our road? The ARTO demerit system has hit yet another snag. It was supposed to be operational from the 1st of February, but that date has now been postponed indefinitely.
Look, in South Africa, and again, we in the industry of defensive driving or driver training, and remember, it's not legislative training. So, for example, we deal with a lot of corporates, and corporates kind of have a choice whether to do driver training for their employees or not. Whereas if you look at the other things they do, like first aid, firefighting, working at heights, etc., that's all legislative training. They have to do it. They don't have a choice. And we've always, fighting the battle of, this is the leading cause of death and injury on South African roads, but the government's not making it legislative training. If they could just do that, well, that kind of would help the whole story, where now the company has a corporate responsibility to send people on driver training, but it's, they kind of just almost pick it. If not, they wouldn't do it either. And, with ARTO coming in, and that's a problem, because you might have some corporates that now haven't chose to do driver training over the past few years. Now the drivers have got bad habits, and that's going to lead to more traffic fines, etc. And we all know the major consequences that go with that with ARTO. Whereas if it's legislative training, we probably would have now, that company might have better drivers, which is a bit easier to comply with ARTO.
Yeah. Just finally, Derek, your advice to motorists who will be on the roads this coming weekend?
Look, there's many of them. I've kind of narrowed it down to the top 5 quickly. So, you know, a lot of people Easter weekend, they are traveling. They tend to take their luggage trailer with them, caravan, boat, etc. And those trailers, unfortunately, haven't been checked for the last year. So make sure that your trailers are in roadworthy condition as well as your vehicle. Plan your route so you can have regular stops so fatigue doesn't set in. And, you know, again, just stay off the cell phone. You know, a lot of people on a long journey maybe get bored, so they start chatting to relatives on the phone, etc. Just stay off the cell phone so you spend 100% of your concentration on the actual driving and